All right, we gotta get into Twitter here. We got. It seems like every week you just send out a new tweet that gets people riled up, and then we get to have something to talk about.
Uh,
So
it's nuts too, because a lot of times, like I'll just I'll tweet something and not think anything of it, and then all of a sudden you just get what it really boils down to. I think a lot of times is you have a couple of these people that already have these preconceptions.
yeah,
Is that the word? Of who you are, and so if a tweet or something somehow comes along their feed, then they basically twist it to fit their kind of agenda, I guess you can say, and then they blast it out, and then a lot of people just see that
yeah,
and don't actually go. Well, first off, they either, even if they do go and look at what I initially wrote, you already are coming with it from. It's kind of like, if you go see a movie with all your buddies and stuff, and you like really like the movie, and you get out. If you initially like were like, guys, that movie was sick. If you say that, like that's your genuine thoughts. But if you get out of the movie and then everyone was just like, oh my god, that movie sucked. A lot of times you'll just be like, yeah, the movie wasn't that good. Yeah, what? Like you kind of like go with the flow. And I think Twitter, that is a platform that probably happens a lot, where there is a lot of dogpiling. And so if you're already against someone or don't like someone and someone says something, then you already just jump on that and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because initially what I said, and if you want to read the tweet so everyone
yeah. I've got
that
it pulled
hasn't
up.
seen it yet, yeah, go ahead and read it so everyone can hear
All
it.
right. So this is what you tweeted. These iPad tipping machines have gotten a bit out of control. I'd way rather tip the pilot that got me to my destination safely than someone making me a smoothie.
Yeah. So when I tweeted that, I honestly was just like,
So I was laughing at something in the background. I don't know.
I,
I don't know
I,
what's got Silas cracked up, but he is rolling back there.
what are you saying, Sal? Let's talk. Let's hear it.
No, Hunter just sounds like a freaking ghost in the background because it's like repeating.
I think that
It
was
was
like
like repeating.
I think that was like
through
something
Brodie's
at Charlotte.
headphones.
I think that was like an announcer at Charlotte.
Oh.
Oh no, yeah, there was some. They're doing announcements here.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, Hunter's got some like encrypted voice like thing on him. I don't know. Anyway,
No, they're talking about some sort of gate. I'm like in a little cove. There's not that many gates back here, so I was trying to find a good spot. But yeah, so I tweeted that on when I was getting off the flight in Minneapolis,
Mm.
and because the reason why I tweeted it was a rare occasion now. This happened a lot more in the past, but now it's very, very rare. The pilots will sometimes come out of the cockpit and will like kind of send you off,
Yeah.
if you will, as you're getting off. And they're like, and they're all in their, pilots, whatever outfits and stuff. And you're like, oh, thank you so much, because a lot of times you do that to the flight attendants, and the pilots are in the cockpit and you don't really get to see them or whatever. And it made me think because, and this was something that I think was also brought up. I don't think the iPad tipping machines have hit other cities like they've hit Dallas.
Mm.
And this was brought up in the Twitter space that we did, which was a really good point. I kind of equated it to like Bird and Lime, those scooters. Like when those weren't in your city and people were talking about them, you're like, I don't really know what you guys are talking about. Like, because you would hear people be like, dude, this is out of control. They're all over the place. People are just chucking them places. And you'd be like, why are people complaining about this? And then once it came to your city, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a problem. Like these things are just all over the place. And I think that's probably very similar to this, of where I don't know if this iPad tipping machine program that they have is like based out of Dallas, and so like all these companies are having it. But like I was talking to a couple people that were from Dallas, and they were agreeing in the sense that it is everywhere. And so it might not be as crazy of a thing for some, but I think this is too where like Twitter, sometimes it's really easy. And like I said, if you have this like already this idea of who I am as a person, you can, because I mean, gosh, go through the replies and just see how pissed off people were with that. Like,
people were ticked.
yeah, and some people were trying to make it political and all this stuff, and then
Always.
people like
For no reason.
people like took that tweet to basically make it like basically implied that tweet implied that I don't tip and I don't think you should tip, when in fact it's like, and I can see how the problem too was like smoothie. Like a smoothie can be made at like a coffee shop, and a lot of times like local coffee shops and stuff, like people tip at your barista and stuff. I was talking about like a tropical smoothie where you have a high schooler making your drink that's making $13 an hour. They're not like they're hoping that they get tips so they can like provide for their family or pay their rent. And I feel like it was very equivalent to like me working at Subway. When I worked at Subway, I was making, I mean, this was, gosh, I'm a freaking dinosaur, but this was a while ago, to where I feel like I remember like getting boosted from like $8.25 to like $8.50 an hour. Right. And it's like, I wasn't working on tips though. Like I was completely fine with going in, working my 6 hours, making $8.50 an hour and going home. We didn't even, at one of the locations, they actually didn't allow for like a tip jar or anything like that back in the day. Because we were on campus. So they're like, no, you're not even allowed to have anything to where people could potentially tip if they wanted to. That's how I view like the smoothie thing, is like, it's the same kind of situation. And I think also people were like, again, it's just one of those things where you post a tweet and then people just go off, you know, because I had people being like, oh yeah, you would be the one that wanted to tip a pilot that is making six figures and not tip the person that's struggling. And it's like, okay, my point wasn't like how much they're making. My point was, someone's making you a smoothie, and someone, you put your life in their hands for 4 hours or 3.5 hours. In my mind, it's like, I probably would rather tip in that situation. I would probably tip the pilot that like, oh, thank you so much for getting me here safely. I appreciate the service, kind of thing, versus the person that is making a smoothie where I'm paying for, like, I'm already paying the smoothie.
Yeah.
And the company should be paying the person to make me the smoothie. And that's how that business works.
Yeah, that should be factored into the smoothie cost.
Like, I'm pretty sure Silas would probably not be too happy if we were like, hey, Silas, we're just going to let you know, like, when you're running the store, we're actually only going to pay you $3 an hour, but we're going to have a tip jar out there.
Yeah, and you get, that's all yours,
and
man.
You get all the tips. You get all the tips.
Silas, let's try that tomorrow.
Let's not.